another episode of the Route 77 podcast. Join us today as we delve into a recent viral TikTok, the ensuing media storm, and what it all means for singles today, especially within the church community. From big names in conservative media to everyday reactions, we're about to unpack it all. Ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. My name is Natasha. I'm your host. I'm here with Monique. Hello. And David.
Hello.
And I want to talk about this viral TikTok that has gone on this week where it was made, I'm presuming, by a person that is more on the left, but it was grabbed by some of the people on the right in media, such as Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, people who, they're controversial in what they say, but a lot of times they're trying to push conservative values. And so you're trying to see what's going on. Anyway, I reacted to some of the tweets that they did and some of their articles, the conservative people that they did. And I'll also talk about how some of the responses that I got and how it's so detrimental to single people, especially in any single people, but in the church as well.
Yeah.
So here, I'm going to play her TikTok. I'm not sure of the woman's name. I can maybe find that later, put that in the show notes, but here is her podcast, her TikTok.
It's 10:45 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm 29 and single, and I don't have kids yet. Here's what your Saturday morning looks like when you're single at 29 and you don't have a kid running around the house. I didn't rise from my bed until 10:15. Every time I thought, I should probably get up and do something. I thought, why? Nobody's making me. I'm not missing out on anything. I went to Beyonce last night, and I didn't get home until 1 a.m. And I danced and drank my little heart out. And I didn't pay a babysitter to watch my kids as I did that. And I woke up at 10 hungover this morning, just probably why I was in bed for so long. And I was just scrolling on my phone, and I saw a picture of shakshuka, and I thought, you know what sounds really good? Maybe I'm going to learn how to make shakshuka today because I have no plans and I don't have kids and I don't have a husband and I don't have errands to run. I can go to the grocery store and learn how to make shakshuka. That's on my agenda today. Also on my agenda, probably a rewatch of some Real Housewives of New York. I'm also doing a rewatch of Normal People on Hulu, which is really spicy and I highly recommend. Weirdly, I'm into this documentary on Netflix about Blue Zone countries, so I've got a pretty stacked day. Anyway, I say all this to say, whenever I'm hard on myself about why I'm not married and I don't have kids and I should be further along at 29, almost 30, I wouldn't want to do anything else. And I know that you can do all these things when you have kids and you're married, and I understand, but the effortlessness and ease of my life, just focusing on myself and the shakshuka I want to make or the Beyonce concert I want to go to really comes off when I'm hard on myself for not being where society tells me I should be in life.
So could you hear that, David?
Yes.
So that is what she said on her TikTok. Now the reaction, and she has about 10,000 followers when she did this, who maybe it's gone up since then because of all the controversy. So by TikTok or whatever social media standards, it's not a huge following for an influencer. It's larger than we have, but it's not like so huge. Anyhow, so these people on the conservative side are bashing this woman for daring to...
Hold on. Let's hear the reaction of these people before you start saying that they're bashing.
Okay, let me find the screenshots that I took of this article.
Did they not react with a video?
There is a video of a guy with, who is the woman that he's on the video with?
Yeah, but that one's not, he's the different one I was talking about. He was reacting to the fact that the other ones were reacting like Matt Walsh and stuff.
Yes, so there is that, and that one we have.
That one's more of a reaction to people's reactions.
Yes. Which he thought was quite outrageous, which we quite get.
So here it says, so Candace Owens, this is an article on the Daily Wire. It says Candace Owens joins whatever podcast slams viral TikTok woman who bragged about being childless, saying men should not marry her.
I don't see she said that.
I know. So Candace Owens joined the popular whatever Thursday night and weighed in on a viral TikTok video of the single woman who bragged about being childless. In the TikTok video, the woman talked about sleeping in on Saturday morning before taking time to make shakshuka, a North African dish that includes blah, 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 blah. We don't need to care. The video went viral after Daily Wire podcast host Matt Walsh shared it on X, formerly known as Twitter. Well, one of the panelists on the podcast defended the woman, saying she seemed sad about being single. Owens disagreed and said she was intentionally making motherhood look less appealing and it was all on brand for her. The influencer, whose name is Julia Mazur, frequently posts on TikTok about her life as a single and childless 29-year-old woman. So Owens' reply was, she's obviously a narcissist. Let's not pretend this is one video she made. It's her brand on TikTok. It's her brand on social media. Owens added that Mazur could have talked about what she did during her day without mentioning that she is childless. Owens says Mazur's inclusion of that detail proved she was pushing a certain lifestyle choice. The fact is she has to correlate it to, and this makes me a better person than people that have children, is the problem. I don't recall her saying that. Anyway, Owens added, if you're a man watching this, don't marry this woman. She's basically telling you she's selfish. She's telling you she's a narcissist. Everything she says is about me. Even if you're single, you don't have to make your whole day revolve around you. And that particular woman you just looked at is a selfish expletive, and men should not marry her, Owens concluded. That's just what kind of Candace Owens was saying. Matt Walsh should basically, I'm trying to remember where Matt Walsh's talk about that one was. Not TikTok, but Twitter one, what he said about it. Was basically, let me find
And
it.
sorry, who said this?
That was the one from Candace Owen. Let me see if I can find the response. Matt Walsh's Matt Walsh Twitter.
I get that these people came in with the assumption that she was looking for a husband, but made this video.
People were assuming that they're saying, oh, she's just trying to push that being married and having kids is a horrible life.
And she's a U.S. citizen, right?
Yeah. I was trying to see if I could find Matt Walsh's.
And where did these people are probably pro-speech?
Yeah.
Free speech.
Yeah.
So then they, of course, have their opinion of her, and she can have other people's opinions of her, and all that's fine. But why would they even care? A lot of these guys have done actual research into like marriage and stuff when it comes to the modern statistics of it, right? Like you say, more than 50% of women end up regretting not getting married and having children by the end of their life. That's statistically.
Yeah. There are people who do make selfish decisions.
And so that's probably where they're standing, is they're looking at that and they're probably thinking this person hasn't learned or actually experienced life enough to justify making a video like that.
So here's Matt Walsh's response on Twitter. Her life doesn't revolve around her family and kids, so instead it revolves around TV shows and pop stars. Worst of all, she's too stupid to realize how depressing this is. That was Matt Walsh's comment about this video. And actually she talks about the fact that she's done looking at the negative things about not being married and having kids at 29 going on 30. She says that in the middle of her TikTok.
Well, there's a massive portion of men who say if you're not married by 25, 26, you're going to have an extremely difficult time trying to find a man that fits within your standards. And coming from these guys' perspective, and they responded in a manner that I would not have responded in. They were harsh, in my opinion.
Yeah,
in the way. But I also understand why they responded that way, because statistically, if she lives alone for, say, the next decade and ends up being 39 and then realizes, oh, I missed out on having kids and a husband, statistically, she's not going to find a man that will fit within her standards and criteria anymore, right? Because typically it's the younger woman a man tries to find statistically in the modern age. Someone's not going to seek a 40-year-old to 50-year-old woman anymore.
Yeah.
But that also makes the assumption that the woman wants, how do we word it?
The thing I find with all of these comments is that they are so generalized. They're taking this one woman's comment and painting every single woman out there with that same paintbrush, saying that because we're single, we all must be selfish and self-centered. But what about the woman who has wanted to be married from the time she was a teenager or whatever, but it never happened? Because it never happened, why is she now all of a sudden selfish because she's just living her life the way she wants to?
So what you're doing there, Monique, is probably how they would perceive it is as if there's more women statistically that are like her than there aren't. So you're taking the 1% and saying you can't relate 80% to the 1% kind of. So
That's what their comments are. That's what their comments are doing.
So here's one of the things that Ben Shapiro has put on Facebook, which is in reaction to all this. Like, it's all those people from the same Daily Wire that are doing it. So he puts, why the most powerful forces in society want you to be single, childless, and selfish. And I said, no, not true. Yes, this is a me culture. However, sexual relationships and marriage are not needed for a complete, fulfilling life. It's statements like these that make single people feel broken and depressed about their lives. I am single and childless, but it allows time for me to do other things with my life that are just as important. And like the reactions that I got from that has been like crazy. People that agree with me and people who don't. Like I have one person that's like, you are correct. Paul was single and that allowed him more time in his ministry to spread the gospel. And then another person's like, Paul was not single. He had a wife. You should go back and reread your Bible and quit leading people astray.
Who is that?
And then another person's like, 1 Corinthians 7, verse 8, you should stop arguing, enveloped with ignorance. And then perhaps you should, to the same person who said that he was married, perhaps you should read your Bible. To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. 1 Corinthians 7, verses 8 through 9.
Yeah, but that's specifically related to sexual desire.
Yeah, but they're just saying, they're talking about how Paul apparently was married and he wasn't married, and they're like having this big. And I said, the other person said that's my truth, but it doesn't make it the truth.
So here's another. What?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. If all truth is subjective, then everything is. That just does not make sense. There has to be a singularity in truth. Otherwise, everything is subjective in truth.
yeah. One person's response was to me, what is as important in your life as having children? That's what somebody said to me. What could possibly be more important in my life than having children?
So these people you also have to keep in mind that these people are coming and viewing this with a perspective of a world with no God, with no Jesus. That's what a lot of these responses are going to be. And because of that, the only meaning to life with no God, and again, this is very subjective, it is relationships, your children, your husband, and friendships, etc. So the only way your life could be meaningful and fulfilled in this sense without a God, and in my opinion, even this dies out.
Yeah.
One through marriage and children.
One person's even basically telling me that I'm destroying the family as well. It's ideals like this that have destroyed the family. It's just other person's where is it?
You should flip it. See if he's married. If he's
this
not.
post makes you feel depressed, then you actually need help for real. And another person said, maybe it's the single life that's making you feel broken and depressed.
Yeah, because let's get married and that'll fix it all.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been there before.
That also creates the assumption that marriage is the solution to these problems, right? But you have to, okay, let's take that hypothesis and test it, really.
Okay.
Are all marriages perfect and happy? No. So it failed to even provide that. So then what is considered? If marriage can fail and cause that same kind of loneliness and depression, then what else is there? You have to have another solution.
God.
These people,
They're foolish, isn't it?
But a lot of people come
no,
as if it's like a biblical thing too, right? Like it's mandated.
Yes.
There are
I
some
understand Shapiro because he's coming from the Old Testament, like he is Jewish, so he is coming from that like marriage is the way, like you basically have to go or you're an outlier.
Yeah, because it says in Genesis, go out and prosper.
But yeah,
fill the earth. Yeah.
That was the practically second or third commandment in the Torah, in the Old Testament, was to go out and spread, because there was very little population. There was very little humans, and that's what God wanted.
But when the world got to people.
When the world got to a standing, when the world got to enough people, Christ came.
Yeah.
You can't 100% know why he came at the time he came, but the amount of people that are now born on earth
Yep.
from the year 0 to 2000 is like 3 to 4 times that amount of people from the year 6000 to 0 kind of thing.
Because technically, if every single solitary person on this earth got married and had the 5
Or
kids,
children, whatever, yeah.
our population would quadruple. I'm pretty sure of it. Do we really want 24 million people on this earth? Where are we going to put them all?
Northern Ontario. There's a lot of nothing there.
Is there a lot of nothing there?
Just have to drive through it.
So I'm still unclear what Ben Shapiro's position is on this matter.
Every woman should be married.
Yeah. That by promoting a single life that can be fulfilling.
So that also makes the assumptions that every man should be married.
Yeah. But again, perspective. But you're actually having ones in there who aren't. Matt Walsh, I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe it's Michael Noel and Christian. And so there's a lot of like right wing conservative. But like the point like that they're making it what I don't like is that they will like this woman could have been on there just going on and on about the good things about being a wife and a mother and having kids and the best things about it. And they would have said 0 things. But because somebody is living a life that's not that, it says the positive parts of that life. Then all of a sudden it means that they're promoting it above. Like in no way. She says, I understand you can have this as a married person, but right now, like this, I wouldn't have it any different.
Yep.
But for her to say that, it's she's trying to get everybody to stay single.
Oh, but they're saying she doesn't have a meaningful life. Going out to a concert, drinking her face off, and waking up the next morning hungover, and then making some sort of funky dish, and then sitting at home watching
Real Housewives of Northwest. Said on one of them, I said, you could have asked me what I did on Monday. I slept on the couch all day and played video games.
But what worldview are these people judging her on?
They're coming from the right wing. So there's going to
I mean, okay.
It's going to be conservative.
Because you
some
can't
conservative
left or right is completely subjective.
Yeah, but
You'll have so that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because in 1,000 years their opinions or where they stood left or right wouldn't be. You
matters.
need an objective worldview in order to understand how to. I guess what is their objective worldview? Is there no God? Is there a God? Is there
it's
some
going to
moral?
vary
yes.
because
Yes,
this is
okay,
not
so-
coming from
so
a
the
specific
peop-
Christian.
So the people coming in with a no God mentality, a no God worldview, or there is some higher power, but I could still do whatever I want, ends up being the only point, the only meaningful interaction in their lives that they can come to is that of marriage and kids. That's it.
Yeah, but you're going to
In
have
that-
most of the people on here are going to, they won't say all, right wing, left wing. There's going to be a variety of different worldviews, but in the right wing, there's going to be a tendency towards a Christian faith, whether it's evangelical, whether there's a,
Yeah,
or a
so-
Jewish faith, there's going to be some sort of faith in God.
So now when you get to that point, when there's someone with faith in a God, there's technically it makes it so marriage is only for the fact that you have a sexual burning desire. If you cannot withstand temptation in that regard, then get married. Because Jesus showed that you can love without any kind of
Sexual
any
component.
and that's what marriage was technically in place for. It was to unify two people so that they can have children, but also help with the temptation of sexual sin, right?
Partly.
So what other aspects of marriage then would, take marriage, look at it, figure out what you could take out of marriage that you can't have outside.
I guess
Okay.
it depends upon if you're Christian or non-Christian.
I said at the beginning of this that we're in the state where the person is a believer in Christianity or a God. Okay. So we're in that mentality. So we don't need to worry about people who don't believe because they will never conform to that. They will go sleep with whoever they want. And the problem is that we already see that. If they sleep with all they want, then the point of marriage is obsolete. Like, it creates a risk factor to the point where men who don't believe will go, look, it's way too risky for me to marry someone because as soon as I get married, that woman's apparent life is fulfilled once they have kids. She can leave me and take 50%. So it's too much of a risk for a man to marry who doesn't believe in a God or Christ or any kind of objective morality. So then marriage is outdoors. So then effectively, what would make marriage, if you take away the sexual and the children, what would make marriage, what can you have in marriage without those things that you can outside? That's my question. If you're a believer in a deity or God, that's objective morality confines those two things to a marriage.
But I think too, like when you look at it, like the reaction that's there, like just even to my post, and let alone there's this woman and stuff. Is it any wonder that singles in the church are in the mind headspace that they're in, where like they have to be married, they have to have kids, or their life does not have meaning?
I mean, who these people were commenting on. And there's another one as well on Mike Walsh's. Yeah, Matt Walsh, he says it would be great if we could just go one day without a woman on social media promoting shallowness and selfishness as a path to joy and fulfillment. But his mistake really is that he's commenting on women who are not Christian, who just have no other direction in life in that respect.
And that's exactly the point I made earlier, is that they don't have any other thing to give them any value or meaning in life.
No, but he's saying that is her joy and fulfillment.
Yes. Yep.
She should be, other than, being shallow and selfish as her joy and happiness.
It's somehow like that. If you dare talk about having a fulfillment in life without having kids and a spouse included in that, like, whoa, wait a second. That's not even possible. Or what are you promoting? You're promoting like evil, leftist propaganda. And you're like, wait, what does Paul say in the Bible? That's totally not.
But you can't really apply biblical objective reasoning to a situation where the person or people are not
but
believers.
yet we still live in a society that's multi-religious, and you're going to deal with social expectations. And just I talked about way back when we talked about the history of singleness and stuff, where marriage, like singleness was given this higher level of spirituality when the Catholic Church was coming into the main power. Then when the Reformation happened, they created like this pendulum swing of, hey, since the Catholic Church was so pro celibacy, we're going to be that equally pro marriage. And they swung the pendulum all the way to the marriage side, to the point of where to talk about being single or the blessings of singleness became taboo. And this is the same thing. Like, we're in this society, we're living within this world that's talking about, yeah, there are people who are trying to, like, there is a desire to destroy the family and the institution of marriage that God has placed, and what is where children should be raised in a 2-parent mother and father home.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
That's his new podcast.
Oh, he's got a new podcast.
Yeah, where he talks about why the most powerful forces in society want you to be single, childless, and selfish, which is what you were just talking about, where everybody wants to destroy, like they want to destroy the children by telling them that they can be whatever they want
to be. And and like marriage can be anything. It can be totally.
So what would be the benefit for those people who are destroying those views of others? What would they gain in saying you could be whatever you want?
With the ideology parts when we're...
So you guys just finished discussing how you would have these people come in and say you could be whatever you want. You could be identified. You don't need to be married, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And you said they're destroying. But what would that person gain by telling those other people that?
But the thing is, I think there is a spiritual battle that's going on underlying in this. And not everybody is fully aware that they're part of it.
Yeah.
Many people are not fully aware they're part of it. So
they just think they're just doing,
most
this is
people,
what it is. This is what it is. This is what I am. And everybody should be on the same boat as me.
And people aren't going like, I'm out to destroy something. They're more like, there is an honest, I think, desire for them to protect something that they believe should be protected. But they've been lied to by their own sinful nature, by Satan, and all these things that how this is how other people by other people. And so, there's other people that definitely do have an agenda. There's other people, but I think the 90% of the people that are on the opposite side, I'd say the left or whatever you want to call it, that from what God has said is to be true, they don't know that they're fighting, they're actually fighting this battle. And the thing is, we have to live in this world. We can just be like, oh, that doesn't apply to us because we're Christians and they're not. But we're still living in this world. And like just me as a Christian, conservative woman who's not married anymore and has no children, to say something like, hey, marriage and children aren't the only way, and to get the backlash that I got, somehow I'm trying to destroy
Families.
God's design.
Yep.
Like I'm not really hurt by that because I think it's ludicrous because I know where my heart is in this.
I
But
know
it
what
just,
God has called us to.
yeah. And so it's just like, this is why Route 77 like exists, is because we need to turn this idea on its head of what singleness is in our culture, because a lot of people are influenced by culture and within our own church, because they're trying so hard to push back against the culture that is wrong and not allowing it to influence them, that they swing so far that people get left behind.
Yeah.
And we can't talk about that because I mean it's true, but it might
You don't want to hurt
affect-
anybody. You
yeah.
might hurt somebody's feelings.
or we might be like allowing something that by admitting that singleness is a valid option, it can be completely fulfilling, where we would be like saying what these other people are saying, and then we're going to be lumped in with them, or somehow we're affirming them. And
And we're not. No.
but this is the difficulties that we're fighting against as the single people in the Christian church specifically, because people in the Christian church are the ones who lash out because they feel like our message is anti-God, but they're not. It is not actually.
We don't stand with the single thought that says it's the best option. You don't have to do anything. You can just do whatever you want. You can spend all your money, travel wherever you want, be whatever you want, go wherever you want. You don't need a husband. You don't necessarily need any of that.
So this is one person's response when I said basically, because they're like, oh, people will regret not having kids. You'll get lonely. It's better not to be lonely. And I said, I have family. I have a best friend. I have best friends who I'm a family with. I have nieces and nephews. I'm not lonely. And the biblical model for our lives is the way to be the most successful and happy in our lives. He's alluding to marriage being the biblical model, by the way. Sadly, we often choose otherwise because we want to do things our way, not God's way. It's like the older woman who sees a young child and suddenly wishes she had a child, or seeing an old couple together and wishing she had a companion in her old age who knew her completely and she knew him. Yes, you can be happy doing your own thing, but not your happiest.
And what
If this is the case, then why wasn't every disciple married? Why wasn't Jesus married? Like,
that's the thing. Like, they say these things, and from what they're saying, they're proclaiming that they're Christian, the way that they're putting this.
Yeah.
And yet, like, they're claiming that I'm being selfish and not following God's design for my life.
they're contradicting. Like, they're saying, like, this is the standard that the Bible teaches, but Jesus didn't stand up to being married. He wasn't married.
No.
Most of the disciples weren't married. Like, why weren't they married? Why wasn't Jesus married? If this is the message of the Bible, then why didn't Jesus lead by example? Why didn't the rest of the disciples? Why didn't Jesus say, now come and follow me, but you have to get married?
Yeah,
This
bring your
is-
wives, bring your kids.
And that there's a really big picture here that we're all not even looking at. Where are these marriageable people?
That part of it is that
Here I am. I've been single since the early 2000s. I never wanted to be single. I wanted to be married. So desperately wanted to be married. There was nobody. I never ran into anybody. There was no single guys. Oh, yes. The church has single men. They were like 30 years older than me. No, thank you. I'm sorry. No.
But
You
this
know,
is
Or they were 20, 25, 30 years younger than me. I'm sorry. I'm not that way either.
you're not a cougar.
I'm not a cougar now. And when I was going through my women issues where I needed a gynecologist and had to have an operation, I was in my 40s? Maybe I'm in my early 40s. And you can still have children in your early 40s if you're still at that. And my gynecologist said, if you do want to have another child, I can help you with that, meaning in vitro, right?
Yeah, lots of other options.
There's so many options. Third party, right? And I thought about it. And my thought was, as a single woman with no marriageable options anywhere out there for me, to raise a child by myself is ridiculous. What am I going to do? How am I going to support that child?
there's not just that, but there's statistics showing that single moms, children end up going into a crime and just not conforming.
See, that would fall more under this person talking about the godly and biblical example of family where you're actually willingly removing the father from a child's life, like willfully doing that.
Yep.
So that you can have a child. Like that is more selfish.
Then being,
And again, I'm not demonizing people who have made this decision because a lot of times they make it like out of the goodness of their heart. They just honestly do. But I believe that me choosing singleness, or at least to choose to receive the blessings of what comes with singleness and not having children, is not selfish and God, like it's going against God's design.
Yeah.
And yet a person who would willfully go around God's design of father and mother by getting the third party or the like all these things, assisted reproductive
medical assistance.
reproductive technologies, that would be to me more going around. But then they'd be a mom, and then these people would be like, at least they're a mom. It's like somehow that's how is that right?
But to respond to that person who says that old lady who regrets or whatever, you can regret all you want. If that option was never in front of you that you could take it, what are you going to do?
And I read through some Reddits too, that because people, they were like asking, like, did you regret having kids? And people are like,
Yeah.
and they're always throwaways because they don't want to like anybody to know that they read it. But to read them, it's a kind of heartbreaking. Oh, I allowed my spouse to, and then look at this, or this happened, or they're severely autistic, and now and then they'll be seen as like the most horrible people because they regret it, even though they'll say something. There'll even be people who said, I regret it, even though I love my child dearly.
Yeah.
But it's like my entire life and job now is to take care of this child.
Yeah.
And especially if they're like, they hadn't really wanted one in the first place, and their spouse or society so it's like pressuring them, and
So they felt obligated. And or you've got that young couple who are so desperate to have children, but for one reason or the other, they are unable to have any children. And no matter what kind of medical intervention they have had to try, it never happens. So then you've got this young woman who is so depressed.
told their whole lives that this is their purpose.
Yeah. And no, she can't. So all of these generalizations that they're throwing out there, that she's selfish, that she's self-centered, that she's this, that, and the other, because she's just living her single life, because I'm sorry, there's no option in front of me.
And I'm sorry, she was doing stuff on the weekend. Like, who doesn't do stuff on their weekend? I'm sorry.
So
like
then-
on Monday, on Labor Day Monday, I literally slept on the couch and played video games all day.
Yep.
I could have said that, but then
You
they
work 2 jobs.
and I worked 10 days in a row. Like, that's all you saw of me. And they're like, oh, why doesn't she do something with her life instead of just playing around with them? They're like, oh my God, you don't know. This person was Friday night to Saturday morning. Like, you don't know what her weeks looks like.
Nope.
It just seems ridiculous. Am I going to go around pre-TikTok and be like, I did work for the last 7 days, and now I'm on my day off, and this is what I did. And then you don't have to
qualify.
it's
why
not
you're
like
doing what
every
you
single day I'm just drunk on the couch, I don't know, funding off the government, watching housewives of every city in the U.S.
If she can afford to go to a Beyonce concert, she's making some money, guys.
She's
I'm
making
sorry.
But there's an aspect of her actually just posting the TikTok to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
why did she do that? She didn't have to do that.
She has a TikTok thing, and that's like,
And
I
a
think part of
podcast,
her-
apparently.
part of her thing is that she is a single woman, that she's able to do these things because she's single.
Yep.
And yeah, there might be some sort of selfishness that comes in there. Like, I know there's people who go, why would I want kids? I don't want to take care of kids. I don't want the responsibility. Like, there's a selfishness there, but would you really want a person who is like that, really having kids?
The funny thing is, it's
Right.
not just women who say they don't want to have kids. There are a lot of guys out there who do not want to have kids, who do not want to get married. They prefer to live the single life, but you don't hear them talking about them.
No, it's
It's always the woman that they are bashing and saying it's
And
the woman.
I mentioned this earlier, but statistically, if you don't have some kind of objective criteria for a marriage, these men don't want kids, or they don't want to marry. It's because it's too much of a risk. If say a man decides, oh look, I'm going to go marry a single mom, and then 5 years down the road, I bonded with this kid, and she decides, oh, I don't want to be with you anymore, then that bond with that kid is out the door. It's gone. Like, you just wasted 5 years of your life bonding with this kid. So statistically,
It wouldn't be.
it's not worth. That's why you see men who don't say anything or don't want to get married. It's because with modern culture and how everyone is being treated, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, and I get that. It doesn't. To be honest, like when I did a legal course years ago, and it talked about the family legal things. And yeah, I was like, hey, if I wasn't a Christian, I'd be like, screw getting married. It would just be too expensive if you ever split up.
Yep.
But yeah, it just seems frustrating when because I'm like conservative, so I'd be technically on the right. But when you see that you essentially are not accepted for who you are amongst the people that should be supporting you because you don't fit into their agenda or what is it called?
If that's the case, then I don't think you should be interacting with those kind of people at all. Because if if what you're doing in your life doesn't conform or conflicts or causes calamity with others, then yes, your friends should intervene. But in what you just mentioned, it seems like you're just with a bad group of people.
But the thing is, this is what's on social media. So this is what people are consuming. And if I don't stand up and say something, even if I do get bashed for it, which I don't care because I know what I believe and I know what God is calling me to do. So I feel confident in that. There are people on there who are like, yeah, this is what you're saying is true. But if you don't ever get people who say this, then either people are going to just assume that everybody on the right, quote unquote, are like anti-singleness, which seems to be a lot of them are. But then if you at least give people like, hey, this person sees me, this person understands I have worth, because you're telling by the reaction that they have, you're telling single people, like they're telling single people, specifically women in this situation, that if you're not married or have children and are not actively pursuing that, then you are worthless and you are selfish and you are trying to destroy what God has put in. Like you're all this type of person. And that's the message that's going out. And we can say, well, just ignore it and don't go on it. But the thing is, people do.
Yeah.
And we need to speak up about it.
This is why they're called influencers.
Yes, exactly. And then these are, and we need to actually be a voice of people out there, because it's for so long in the church and everything, like there hasn't been a voice. We've been conditioned to, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have kids. And if you don't fit that, then there's something wrong with you. You need to fix it. I think I had put a response to that story I'm trying to remember, onto the Daily Wire. And some of the responses were like, then you should go and improve yourself so that you can get married. Really? That's your response?
As your friend, sister in Christ, and live with you every day, I don't see what they're saying, because there's nothing wrong with you. It's pretty girl, works hard, kids love you to pieces. You are a good teacher. You're smart. You're like,
On it.
well, so there's nothing that I see for what they're saying that she needs to improve herself in, because she's got a right relationship with God. She leader of this podcast ministry. What is it that you need to improve?
Apparently my cooking skills, according to
I've had your cookings. Yeah, I've had your cooking. It's not that bad.
Okay? It's not often. It's
just not often. But that's okay.
So, their comeback is going to be like, they're going to come back and say, Monique, look, you live with her, you're biased. So I want to counter that and say, I'm an outside source and I see the exact same as what Monique is saying.
Yeah, because you don't live with us.
No,
but we've often invited you to, if we had the space.
Yeah.
So this is one person's response to what I had written on the Daily Wire article itself. I had written down, this is what I wrote. I watched this TikTok. This is really unfair to this influencer. She is celebrating some of the positives of being single. As a single person myself, I also have come to appreciate things that come with singleness. And that includes having time to myself because I have no children. I spent years believing I was less than a woman for not being a wife or mother, and allowed myself to stay in a decade-long abusive marriage just so that I wouldn't be single. Let's stop shaming people, period. Let them be married or single and enjoy the blessings that come with each. And I had a lot of negative feedback, but this person said, fully agree that Wallace and Owens were unfair to this woman. Amazing to me that you share your own personal experience on the matter, remain respectful throughout, and yet your call for civility is downvoted by people that don't even know you. They aren't even listening. That's the problem with echo chambers. No one really listens, and horrible behavior like Welsh's and Candace's are defended and even supported. I see a lot of this type of behavior from the left, but it's still incredibly frustrating to see it happen on the right as well. So like, I
Nice.
appreciated that response.
Nailed it right on the head.
Because there's just like, so many, and it was just, yeah, it's just like I said, like, I am confident where God has me right now. I'm confident in that my singleness is not countercult, or it's not counter godly, it's not counter biblical, and that I'm not against remarrying. I'm not looking to remarry. I'm just satisfied where I am now and content. And it just like almost makes me laugh with the like responses that I get, because it felt like it's just so predictable.
Yep. And it was like they weren't even really reading what you were saying.
No, they're just like, and the thing is, as soon as, if
Knee-jerk
anybody's seeming to like,
reaction.
because a lot of their stuff too, like if anybody is, especially like Matt Walsh and all, and them, when they like, because everybody always has their cliche stereotype of the opposite side. There is a tattooed, short-haired, purple-haired athlete because of Megan Rapinoe on the American. Yeah, pretty much me. I know, because Megan Rapinoe is not a very nice person. She was on the American national soccer team. She's huge in the LGBTQ part, but she's very anti-patriotism, like anti-American, and she's very outspoken. But because of that, like her description, like physical description, has become like their go-to for putting down the left. And I always am coming back and going, like, I got short hair, purple hair, tattoos, sports person, tomboy, conservative, evangelical Christian here.
Like, who does like guys, by the way, she's
not gay, because that's apparently the only thing
that's left over.
and it's just like, we have to stop stereotyping. We have to stop assuming that anybody who doesn't follow our narrative is anti whatever. And it's not like, I'm not anti-family. I am all for a husband and a wife and them having kids and stuff. But if that's not the way that God has it designed for them, or that doesn't happen through the fall of like your body, it's just like with my ex, he had cancer and he had chemotherapy. That's just literally part of the fall.
Yeah.
And that's what happens for people.
And that will sterilize you.
Yeah. It's not like it was a plan.
No.
But that's the way it is. But then by having this reaction, then what is that telling people who don't get married or who can't have kids, even if they want them?
Yep.
So if they find the joys of not having children by having that time and the ability to just go out whenever, all of a sudden you're like putting down marriage. But then you can go and like croon all you want about the joys of having children and the joys of being in marriage, which is true. But if you do the same about singleness, then all of a sudden you're the bad guy.
Yeah. Because whether you're married or single,
and specifically for women,
yes,
because they're always being looked down on. And if you see Candace Owens' reaction calling her the V word, that is the reaction that you get. You're this B word if you aren't actively seeking a husband and children.
Yeah. You are a nasty female dog.
Yes, nasty female B word dog thing. And
That's
it's just
what they call people.
yes.
But we're not that.
We're not that. And the thing is, but that's what you get called and that's what you get referenced, because you're not following their narrative. And I'm not, again, nothing against marriage. Yeah, it's a wonderful institution. You can have a wonderful marriage. You can have a wonderful time with children.
If
But
you
that's
find
not
the
everyone's-
person, if you find the person to marry, and if you're even capable of
And
having
if it works
children,
out to have children.
yeah,
And then perhaps if you don't criticize the people who aren't these things, then it won't be so detrimental if they doesn't happen for them. It won't be so soul crushing or depressing, or like you feel like there's no purpose to your life because it was all about this one thing that you were not able to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, I had this conversation with one of the girls in the church, and I'll keep her anonymous because I don't want to have her think. But she was saying the same, single. When will it happen? She said, I'm busy throughout but it's the nighttime. And I says, you know what? We go through the same thing as whether you're a guy or a girl. Sometimes, for some reason, when the sun goes down and it gets dark, that's when loneliness can set in. And I said, this is where you need to make sure that you have around you people who support you, people who can help you when you're feeling those lonely times. Call up that friend and say, I'm just not feeling, and have those conversations. And
Even like our situation, like people, they have assumptions.
Yeah.
But we have chosen a life that's not lonely, right? In a way that is not conventional. But that's what everybody's saying. Oh, you're going to regret it. You're going to die old and alone. I'm like, hello. This is exactly what the church is for. That they're saying, like, don't forget the widows, because there's going to be widows that are going to, like, unless you're in the Notebook, you're not dying on the same day, or you're in a horrible crash. Okay. There's somebody
As for people who thought The Notebook was a horrible movie.
It's so corny. My ex loved it. I have no idea. I was just like, what was I just watching?
I don't even know what that is.
Let's just say it was like they both died within hours or minutes of each other in an old folks' home. And
It's a story of a man who is recalling his past with his wife, who is in a nursing home, and she has Alzheimer's, so she doesn't remember. So he wrote down their memories and he reads them to her.
Yeah.
So so he's reading to her the memories of their courtship and marriage and children and stuff like that.
that's what we see.
And that's what we see is their past. And then at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, and I'm going to save you from that anyways, he's in the nursing home as well with her because they're both old. And I guess one night he just decides that he misses her and he goes into her room and he lays down beside her and the nurse finds them both in the morning and they both perish.
They both passed away. So
Yeah.
unless you live there or you die in a horrific accident, one person is going to be alone.
Yep.
And you might have family around, you might not have family around. Like my family is in other provinces, but you never know how it's going to be. But that's what your church family is there.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you create that family. The church family should be there so that you are not forced into marrying so that you won't be old and alone. That's not a good reason to be married. That's a perk of getting married and having children, is that there's a high likelihood that you will have family around you.
Yep.
But that is not a reason to get married. That's a benefit of marriage and children.
And your kids, even when you are going to be by yourself. I work in the retail industry and I speak to many people on the phone, and I've spoken to many elderly people who tell me, yeah, my husband passed away a year ago and I've seen my children like once in that whole time and I am so lonely. And that just breaks my heart.
And so it's not a guarantee.
Nope.
We like to have this romantic view of it. And yeah, I think that's God's design, is that we are there for each other, but it's also why we're a family in a church.
Yeah.
Church is family because the world is not perfect.
Yep.
And we're supposed to pick up the slack for like things that happen.
Yep.
And we're there for the widow. We're there for the single parent. We're there for the orphans. We're there for the people who are killed. Or we're there. There's just all these things. And so when you have Christians saying, well, you're going to die old and alone. And it's just like, wait a second.
Where are you in this picture?
Yeah. Like, why are you allowing this to happen to people? And going, you're single, you asked for it. Therefore you get it. What?
Yeah.
That
I
makes
know.
no sense. Like,
Or they say it's the pastor's job.
yeah, instead of it being the church community. And
Yeah.
it's just the church, the pastor's there to herd, like the flock,
To guide.
the flock. That's it. Well, the flock, the herd. The flock, the herd. To guide the herd. And
He's a
then,
border collie.
yes. And then everyone else is to do the work. And it's just, don't be that person. Encourage the single people in your life. Encourage them if that's what they feel like God's calling them to do. If God's calling a woman to be a missionary in another country, then support her.
Yep.
Then if she has to come home when she's older or something happens, then be there for her and don't go, you decide not to marry and have kids. It's your own bed. But you wouldn't do that to a guy. That's the thing. Like, how many times you're like, oh, poor guy, like his wife passed away and we need to make sure he's got food. And
Because she was the one that took care of him. But if we only knew the real story, he was probably the cook.
right, now in this day and age, especially, but
Yeah.
it just seems like ridiculous to say you're going to die old and alone. You're going to regret not having kids. You know what? I didn't have the choice to have kids. Like, I'm in my 40s. Yeah, technically, if I met someone tomorrow and yada, yada, yada. But really, I'm 44 in a month and a half. I'm 45 if I meet somebody tomorrow and get married. I'm 46 by the time I have a kid. We're already getting too old here.
I have had my entire 30s and up to 2012 to get married and have kids with somebody else, and it never happened.
Yeah.
Nobody ever showed, never. And I didn't sit at home waiting for somebody to show up. I was out there. I work in retail. There were people coming in all the time. I go to church. There are people there all the time. I go to events. There are people there all the time. Doesn't mean
Just
you're
the way
going
it
to
happens.
Yeah.
And you know what? Start supporting your people and encouraging them to be like, what? You found blessing in singleness?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It took a long time, and I was depressed for a very, very long time because I thought I was a failure because I couldn't find anybody to get married to. I couldn't have any more kids. It took a long time for me to suddenly realize that I'm okay. I don't need all of that. I am content with my life. And I had to come to that place of realization that I didn't need to be fixed, and being single wasn't something that needed to be fixed.
I want to have a conference for
Yeah.
a singles conference, and I want to call it "I'm Single, Not Broken." And maybe that's not going to stick as the name, but I like that as the name because that's how people treat it. But I'd like them to just touch on one thing because Candace Owens says this like twice, is that based on this TikTok, she is now labeling this woman a narcissist. As two women who were married to narcissists,
I don't see that.
no, and I don't think you can diagnose that condition based on a 30-second TikTok.
Maybe she's a little vain, but that's not narcissism.
No. And I'm sorry, but and if this person was a narcissist, then yeah, you don't want to marry that person. But to go around saying she's a narcissist, no man ever marry her, it's just wow. That's
Wow.
just like wrong.
Can we just not label people because you don't agree
As
with
soon
them?
as anybody seems a little bit selfish, oh, they're a narcissist. I'm sorry. We were married to narcissists.
That's the least of their problems.
We know in depth of what type of people they are. You can't just go around labeling them like that.
Yeah. Even the people who were not married, who knew my ex from working with him and stuff, they were just like, oh yeah, he was a scary person. Okay, so I wasn't crazy.
It's just, I don't know, just stop labeling people. We got to stop. I know that they are like personalities on TV and they have their own podcasts and everything and right wing, left wing, I don't care. We got to stop the name throwing.
Yeah.
It is not impressive. It's disgusting. It's not biblical.
And it doesn't look good on you.
No, and it's just like Jesus was not running around slinging muck with name calling. No,
Except for the Pharisees. He called them
he
vipers.
called them vipers.
Are you guys
I'll
a bunch of
leave it
brutal
to
vipers?
God knows the heart.
Yeah.
But I'm not like when we go around, like it says on all these headlines against sensationalism, right? Slammed this one, or they were torn apart, or whatever. I don't care. It's sensationalism. And as soon as I read any article, left, right, center, alien, I don't care.
Alien.
If it says things like that in the article title, I do not take it seriously. Because to me, it's like, this is an opinion piece based on just that title. There is no fact in here other than opinion. This is your opinion based on what's going on. And I don't believe that we are called to slam anybody, to, I don't know, any of these words. Anybody might like just like
Labeling, name calling,
because the people who are
degrading.
yeah, like anything degrading, because the people who are saying the things that you don't agree with, and they might be a really good reason to not agree with that. 99% of them believe they're doing what is right in their heart. So coming at them like what those type of words and that type of, yeah, like that's not going to change their mind.
No.
And if they believe what they're doing is right, they're going to fight back harder. And
Yeah.
then again, if you just start flinging names,
That's
like no one's going to take that seriously. No one's going to
except for those who agree with you.
yeah. Like
And
the
are-
parts of echo chamber, you get, oh yeah. And it's just like, you know what? You don't want those people around all the time. Like it's one thing to have conversations where you need to have people around you that you agree with so that you can have some in-depth conversations. But then other times you just got to be like outside of that.
Yeah.
And I don't care, like name calling and slamming people and pouncing on people or whatever is not God, but it's not biblical. It is not. No, you can push back in love. You can stand your ground in love, but these are real human beings who believe that they're doing right. Having actual useful discourse with them would serve a greater purpose, having a loving discourse with somebody you disagree with, than just blasting them with names. Like it's going to put them on the defensive, and then they're not going to listen to anything you say, and you're not going to listen to anything they say. And perhaps they have some points that you're like, hey, maybe we need to discuss what happens with this situation.
Right. Because there are some situations, there are some of these people out there who are saying things that are, oh, so wrong. And we need to have these conversations with them to find out, like, why do you believe what you do? Like, why are you saying these things?
And discourse is not
No.
is not happening anymore. It's
No.
just mudslinging.
It's just
and
mudslinging. Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm getting really put off of any media. Like they try to bring out, well, we're coming up with a new media, this Daily Wire. It's going to be like, not like the right, it's not like the left, blah, blah, blah. And then like, it's just like the left. It's just coming from right-wing politics. It's coming from a more conservative basis, but it's no different. Because like, I know Ben Shapiro has talked about how the left tries to use words like the conservatives pounds and they do this and they do that. You use the same words for the left, like
Right.
just different words, but the same thing.
Yeah. Saying the
And
same
it's
thing in
just
a different
the
way.
same thing. You're just sensationalized headlines and appearing like you're on top because you'll say that you pounced and they said that they pounced. So it's like from both perspectives, you guys won. And it's just like
Yeah.
nobody's winning.
Instead of bashing people for being married or unmarried, maybe you should get into some of these real issues that are actually harming society instead of making it better.
And yeah,
And I can
relationship
list,
status is not.
and I can list a few of them. Yeah, relationship status is not it. No.
Do you have anything to add to this before we finish up, David?
No, not really.
He just watched it and he's listening to us rant.
Your commentary was great. Yeah. We like you. You've been a lot more conversational in the last couple of podcasts. We like that. So as a single guy, we appreciate you.
Yes. You don't need to fix yourself either.
No, you're just fine how you are.
I need a lot of fixing.
Yeah, we need to get you back to church, boy.
Okay, so that was our podcast. Hopefully we did handle it in love. I think we tried to. It was just,
It's really hard not to get a little hot under the
it's
collar.
a little preachy. I don't know. I just feel like we need
Preachy?
to be a little more understanding of those who are single and that if they can say positive things about their life, then
That will be
Great.
helpful
And
for
if-
other singles who are struggling.
yeah. And if they are literally selfish people who don't want kids because it's going to ruin their life, then
Oh,
they
well,
probably don't want them to have kids then.
no.
So that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. If they want to be selfish and self-centered and that's their life, only for them.
Then let them do it on their own. You don't, but if
Yeah.
if they're honestly just, this is my days off and I didn't have to, I could just lay on the couch and only my dog bugged me. That's not anti-marriage.
Take this for in the most loving way possible. You are not God.
No.
You cannot tell them how to live their life.
Exactly. So maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to talk about identity next week. I don't know.
Yes,
It's gonna be
because
one of
that's
those-
the hot. There'll be another hot
we
topic.
keep talking about it, but it never happens. But
It never
these
happens.
things come up, and I think it's good to talk about what's going on.
Maybe there's things we need to investigate before we do that one.
Maybe we'll
Yeah,
see.
we'll
We'll see.
see.
We'll see what happens next week.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Route 77 podcast. Whether you agree or disagree, our goal is to open the dialogue and shed light on topics that spark conversations in our daily lives. Thank you for engaging with us. Please share your thoughts and let's keep the conversation going. We'll see you here next time, and remember to live your single life to its fullest.